Welcome to your City Commission study session. Today is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. Please turn off or silence all cell phones during the meeting. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and midnight and available for viewing on YouTube and Facebook Live. Due to the restriction of social distancing to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, the City Commission meeting will not be open to the public. In accordance with Kansas Open Meetings Act, the meeting can be viewed live on Channel 2 and via Facebook Live. Questions on agenda items will be read during the discussion on that topic. Submit your questions to cwilliamson@firstcity.org no later than 6 p.m. on June 2nd. Do we have any comments submitted for the study? Members of the public wishing to receive agenda notifications can contact the city clerk, cwilliamson@firstcity.org, to be added to the agenda email distribution list. Agendas are available for viewing on the city website, www.leavenworthks.org. We have 5 items that we will get to during the study session, and the first one is a statement that myself and the other city commissioners have drafted, and I'm going to read it. It's not a long statement, but it's a statement from the Leavenworth City Commission to Leavenworth citizens. After I'm finished reading it, I would like to get a consensus from the commission and commissioners that this is good, and that we will have a consensus to move forward with it and publicize it. This is the statement. We are heartbroken and appalled by the senseless and gruesome death of George Floyd in Minneapolis a week ago yesterday. First and foremost, we extend our sincerest sympathies to Mr. Floyd's family. His death, as well as other African Americans who have died because of police brutality, is a tragedy for every community across our nation, including Leavenworth. Our hope is that Mr. Floyd's death serves as a catalyst for real and lasting reform in the nation's policing practices and criminal justice system. As elected officials, we will continue to do our very best to set the conditions within our city in which every citizen is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. In this regard, we accept our responsibility to address instances of unequal treatment of Leavenworth citizens, whether it be in their interactions with police officers, the criminal justice system, or both. But in carrying out this responsibility, we ask that all citizens work with us and with one another to build trust and to show by our actions the community's commitment to a just, fair, and peaceful society. And that's the end of the statement. And before I ask for a consensus, let me go around the horn and see whether any commissioners, fellow commissioners, have anything to say at this particular point in time. And I will start with Commissioner Leonhard.
Commissioner Leonhard. Just to add to that, prayers to the George Floyd family. And we just need to make awareness and stand together as a community with prayers and peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
I just thank the commission for the support, for standing up. We all coming together collectively to let our voices be heard. Many nights I've cried. It's been painful and hurtful. Man, I just really think that it's time that we just continue to stand together as a community and address the racism that is inside of our country, and not turn the other cheek, but just look at it and address it, and let us be able to come up with policies to be able to hold these officers who put on a badge and use deadly force when it's not needed to. I thank God and that we're able to stand together and not be afraid to address this issue. As an African American, it's been painful. I've dealt with the racism, but I refuse to stop moving forward. I refuse to stop fighting this good fight, and I will stand together along with my city commissioners. And we're going to be the voice of this community, and we're going to lead our city and fight against racism and stand united with our local law enforcement and let the world know that we do not tolerate racism inside of our community. I thank each and every last one of you all, and I appreciate you all just for standing up and letting your voices be heard. And prayers goes out to George Floyd and his family.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Preisinger?
My condolences also to the George Floyd family. What happened to that gentleman in Minneapolis is inexcusable. It's just an abject case of brutality that was uncalled for. And it's very understandable how Americans across the country are standing up protesting that this type of action must change. And I'm hoping it does change. We do have, as Commissioner Wilson said, we have put policies in place to ensure that they change. We as a commission, we as a community need to stand up against this, and let's move forward to a more peaceful nation and more respectful of everyone's rights, regardless of race, color, or creed. We just can't allow these things to happen in this country at this time or at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Preisinger. Commissioner Bowder?
I would just like to say that I think we used to have trust talks when I first started on the commission. I think it might be a good idea to start that up again. If you all are interested in doing that with some of the pastors in our town and just so we can open those lines of communication. I think it was in something that was really good. Former President Barack Obama made the comment that the police officers are hired by the local government, and so people need to be involved with their local government to make these decisions that affect the people in their community. And I know, what looks like and happened there in Minneapolis was there was a lot of times where things were just glossed over and they were not addressed. So I would hope that our community works together, and I would like to see the trust talks go on again. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowder. I think the trust talks, I don't know exactly, I mean, I know what trust talks means, but I think I would be supportive of that, but let's, I think we maybe can talk about that at our next meeting or next study session, or what do you suggest, should I try to get a consensus on that too, or?
To bring up trust talks or something
Yeah.
like that? I don't think so yet. Let's have some
Okay,
conversation.
yeah, we can have some conversation about that, because those of us who haven't been on the city commission as long as Commissioner Bowder and Commissioner Preisinger probably need to get spun up a little bit on that, but it sounds like a good idea. But I will go around the horn and try to get a consensus that this statement is good to go, and that we could from here publicize it on social media, maybe on our website. So can I start with Commissioner Leonhard, please? For a consensus on the
Yeah.
okay.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes, I support it.
Commissioner Preisinger?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Bowder?
Yes, I support it.
Yes, and I as the mayor support it, so we have a consensus, and thank you for your input and for your very pertinent and important comments. So let's go ahead to the next agenda item, the quarterly report from the Leavenworth School District USD 453, the superintendent, Dr. Roth. Hello, Dr. Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Commission. Thank you for the opportunity once again to address you. I would just like to take a moment to thank you all for that statement. I think as a community member, I will say that I think that is very justified and very true. So thank you for your leadership as a group on that.
Thank you, Dr. Roth.
I'm happy to say that I got to watch almost 300 graduations. Our graduation will be aired this Saturday. We are excited to put that out. We're finalizing the final touches on that. But it was a true intimate process for parents and families. And what we did was we brought each graduate in, and I believe we had just about 285 out of the 311 participate in our graduation ceremony. And so each graduate got 10 minutes, unless they were given a performance or a speech. They got to come across the stage, which was set up just like a traditional graduation. The parents got firsthand view, they got pictures, they got to share in the ceremony themselves. It was just, for me as the superintendent, I got to see families up close, but I also got to see the joy that they had with their graduates. And so I was rewarded. It took us about 54 hours to accomplish this, but the reward of seeing the final product and getting to see the smiles on families and the graduates was well worth the time spent doing that. So our graduates will be officially official when it becomes virtual, but they do have their diplomas, and we're excited to be able to share that with the community on Saturday. So please look at the school Facebook. We will announce all of that and send that out on that as well. We have 5 construction projects going on. Oh, I want to back up 1 second. Back to graduation, I want to thank the city commissioners and the Leavenworth Police Department for our processional that was we were allowed to have down 10th Street. The police presence and the professionalism that they showed for our graduates and the community was second to none. And so Chief Kitchens and his crew did a fantastic job. So I want to publicly thank the commission for allowing that and the police department for supporting that.
You had great weather that morning.
Oh, it was awesome. It was a great turnout. It was just, all of that was fun. And so all the way through graduation was fun. So we appreciate the partnership and the communication to make that happen. We have 5 projects currently going on with our bond. I am happy to say the intermediate school is 95% complete. We're waiting for the gym floor to acclimate to the conditions, and they'll start putting that down next week. That will be the final piece to the gym. All of the all the backboards and scoreboards and all that is already up in the gym. We're just waiting on the floor and the finish of that. And then if Mother Nature will continue to give us some dry days, our landscape on the outside will be complete by possibly this weekend as well. They're putting the final touches on the parking lots. And so we're excited to have that building complete. In the meantime, we've started the remodel of our middle school kitchen, which will feed both the intermediate school and the middle school. And so that was a project that's going on. Our special education department will be getting a new sped suite that services both of those buildings as well. So we're excited about that. That's coming along well. We're expanding the library at the middle school and adding the collaboration spaces for those for the 7th and 8th grade at this time. And if you recall, we've already finished the new art room and the new music room, which is also a storm shelter. So we'll have the storm shelter 100% complete already at the middle school, and the gym will serve at that for the remainder of students within those areas as well. We have the high school parking lot going on, the high school secure entryway going on. So that's going on there. We are adding a sped suite at Henry Elementary. So that's going on. And then our biggest project is Lawson and the remodel of Lawson. And I was fortunate enough to walk through it, the demo part of it today. And the building doesn't look anything like I remembered it in April. So a lot of progress is happening. And a lot of things are continuing as far as the school. Good. Our central office, we're back to normal hours. All 12-month employees began back full-time this last Monday. We are asking the public if they do come by to schedule an appointment if possible. If not, we do have the doorbell system that somebody will be there during business hours to answer questions or to greet the public at that time. Our regular meeting, board meeting in June is this coming Monday, and it will be at the intermediate school. We still will have limits on whether or on the public participation. We'll have a live feed as the city commission is doing as well. And so, but the board members will be the first time they get to see the completed project, the intermediate school on Monday. So we're excited to host our school board meeting out there on Monday. And I would be able to answer any questions from any of the commissioners.
How's the school board doing?
Yeah,
I mean,
Commissioner Leonhard,
go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Leonhard. Go ahead.
Dr. Micro. Hey, I was there at the parade and, right in front of Leavenworth High School, and, a lot of school spirit. I mean, I think all the kids really enjoyed it and got to decorate their cars. Do you think that might be a new tradition?
Well,
You get a lot of good input on that?
you know, we're open for those types of things. It takes a huge commitment from, you know, everybody involved. There was actual circumstances that helped facilitate that and the need for that. But we would be more than willing, and there was a lot of conversation around that already, about whether this can continue or not. And really it would be a lot of discussion that would happen between the two entities, the city and us, because there was a lot of, you know, collaboration that took place to shut those side streets off and the public to avoid a very main street within our community from one side to the other. And so we would be happy to look at that. I think the kids and families truly enjoyed it. And as you said, it was an exciting event.
Okay.
And, also, Dr. Micro, you're probably still in discussions, or when will you have a decision on how the next school year will transform, or?
Right, we've been working, we've been meeting with the admin team, all principals and directors and teaching and learning since school's been out. We're building 3 types of plans. We're building a traditional, which that's our hope. All the kids are back and we're ready to go. We're looking at a hybrid that adds a lot of complexity to have certain kids or certain teachers in buildings and not, and there's a lot of things to be considered of safety and those types of things with a hybrid system. And a hybrid meaning some students are in the building, some students are on a platform like this or Zoom or something like that. And then the third platform would be to continue to do the continuous learning plan, which is all virtual. And as we talked with Senator Moran today, you know, one of the things we talked about, it was much easier to try to finish a school year because you kind of know where students are at and moving forward than to begin a school year virtually. There's a lot more complexity, a lot more things to think about as far as testing and seeing what type of summer gaps you have and where kids are coming back and a lot of things. And so we're working through the 3 platforms. The state of Kansas has given us a July 10th deadline to give us guidance and guidelines that we must meet. But we're trying to get a head start, like most school districts throughout the state. We're trying to get a head start on that process. And so fingers are crossed, prayers are going out that we're able to start school as normal in August to some degree.
Any fellow commissioners?
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Dr. Micro.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions or comments for Dr. Roth?
Commissioner Wilson here. Dr. Roth, I just want to say you and your staff did an excellent job with the graduation. I was able to attend with my little brother. He graduated. You allowed us to be us, I'll tell you that. And it was great, man, to include you in on the fun, the joy and the excitement, man. So I appreciate you and tell your staff thank you as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Bowder or Commissioner Preisinger, any questions or comments for Dr. Roth?
This is Commissioner Preisinger. Just want to congratulate Dr. Roth and his team for the last 3 months of the school, whenever they shut down right before spring break, through graduation. Heard good reports on the graduation, the grade school, elementary school graduations, as well as the high school graduation. A question, I know that used, I don't know if the term was distance learning, but students would sign on for video learning during those last couple of months. How successful was that? Or do you feel that the students kept up, or do you think there will be a percentage of students that probably have fallen behind when the school year starts? What's your professional opinion on that?
I think that's an outstanding question. One of the things that we did see, there was some challenges with internet capability of all of our families, being able to get packets, learning packets and things delivered. There was a lot of things from a school district that we saw, if we enter this, we have to get better at. We also know that participation with students fell off over the last kind of 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And so our attendance rates were continually going down. So there's some red flags there. We have to improve our instructional model. We have to improve the instruction of those lessons. But we also have to engage our parents, engage our community to help assist students in being able to be available in different timeframes, different areas. And so there's some big challenges ahead for us. Even if we start school as normal in August and all things remain the same, we do have some catch up. And so do I believe we were successful? 100%. I think our teachers did a great job. Our admin did a good job. Our community did an outstanding job helping support this. And having the understanding and the flexibility to allow us to work through some kinks, especially early on. But we're going to have some gaps to close. And we're really trying to target the first 20, 21 days of school. We're looking at calendar modifications, not starting earlier or going longer in a day, but how we work in service, how we work in professional development, and try to get kids in front of teachers as quickly as possible. And so we know we have some gaps. We want to look at those first 21 days, try to get ahead by Labor Day and really gain and kind of pivot around Labor Day and kind of see where we need to go. But there's a lot of conversation that needs to happen with our school board. There's a lot of conversation that needs to happen with our Teachers Association, and we're in deep discussion as far as an admin team currently.
Thank you. I have nothing else.
Commissioner Bowder?
No, I had the same question as Commissioner Preisinger. I know you got a lot of challenges and you're meeting them head on, so good luck with the start of the new year.
Thank you.
One thing, Dr. Roth, that I know you adapted, I think, over the last 10 or 11 weeks of the school year, because of the COVID-19 health crisis, was the kind of the meal program for kids or families who are in need of that program. Will that continue over the summer?
It will continue over the summer. We'll serve out of the same areas. Our kitchen staff and Cynthia Schrader, who's the department chair of that, director of our food nutrition, has done an outstanding job. And you know, those ladies and gentlemen, they didn't hardly miss a day. You know, they worked through this. They were, in my opinion, outstanding individuals and the front line. And we fed a lot of kids. I don't have the exact number. At one time early on, I think by the May board meeting, I think I reported that we were well into the thousands of meals served, and that was something that we were very proud of. I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. It goes strictly to Cynthia and her team because they really stepped up.
Well, please extend our thanks and appreciation. And having been a school board president for a while, I understand that they're a lot of times not heralded, but they're behind the scenes doing great work. So
100%.
I know we all appreciate that as a city commission, and give those ladies and men our thanks. And talking about the staff and the faculty and staff, are they now off for a while?
So all of our 12-month summertime employees are back, but our teachers are off. We will start sending some stuff out to do some trainings that they would come in and do over the summer on a volunteer basis type deal, but teachers are off.
That's good.
Right now, there's no plan for extended school year, those types of things.
Yeah, well, I think the teachers and the staff need some rest and recuperation because
100%.
everyone had to adapt, and it did take, I think it took longer hours and certainly an engagement of brain power that may have not been there before because of the newness of what was being done on the scale that it was being done. The only question I have was on that suite at Henry Sped Suite at Henry Leavenworth Elementary. Was that within the existing building, or was that added?
No, it's within the existing building.
Okay.
With us being able to move fifth grade out, we were able to capture
Okay.
some classrooms, and our life skills class from Lawson
Okay.
is moving down out to Henry, so we
Okay.
needed lifts and bathrooms and stuff added.
That's good. Okay, yeah, the number of projects that you got going on is very impressive, and I guess that's one of the benefits. You got a little bit more time to work on those projects, right?
Yes,
As a
very
result
much
of what
so.
happened, so. Well, thank you very much. You did great. Sounded like fun. I saw a lot of the posts on Facebook by the families, and we'll look forward to what comes out as far as the whole, I guess it's gonna take a while to watch, right?
It ended up being a 2 hour and 36-minute
So we'll have to
ceremony,
set- we'll have-
but as
yeah.
Jermaine can say, you know,
Yeah.
the real one was 10 minutes, and then they
Yeah, that's
can,
great.
but it's going to be a great product, and we're very proud of it.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Roth, and take some time off. Have a good summer if you can take some time off, and thank you for coming by and giving us an update.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Roth. Next is Parks and Recreation 2019 Annual Report, and I think we have Mr. Steve Grant.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, we have our Parks and Recreation Director, Steve Grant. This is, I think, the first time we've presented the Parks Annual Report. It's something that they do every year, but we wanted to share that information with the commission and the community. So, Mr. Grant, please take it away.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. It's great to be here with you this evening. Like Paul indicated, this is the first time we've presented to the City Commission, but it is an annual report that we do every year. We've done it every year since I've been here. I've been with the city for 18 years now. It's a very vital, hopefully all-encompassing document that we put together that all of the Parks and Recreation events, programs, all of our operations that we do throughout the year. We utilize this report in a couple of very important ways. One is for that very documentation purpose. What happened in 2019? We can always go back and see what projects did we have, what challenges did we face, what events went on, and then more importantly, we utilize it as an evaluation tool for our programs, our youth sports, our events. What's trending up, what's trending down, what are we doing right, what can we do better, those kind of things. So there is a printed version in your mailbox here at the City Hall if you have not received that already, as well as the digital version that was put with the agenda packet. What I'll go through tonight is much more broad. There's a lot of numbers associated with all of our programs. You'll see in there, you'll see words like self-supportive and things like that, and we evaluate all of our programs and things through those. So with that, I will get into the annual report itself. Next slide, please. First, just kind of an overview of the Parks and Recreation Department. We do have our mission statement. Is the Leavenworth Parks and Rec Department is committed to providing quality leisure opportunities for its citizens and visitors. We pledge to provide and preserve safe, attractive, accessible, well-maintained, managed parks, green spaces, and public facilities. Our recreational programs are designed to incorporate all ages and provide accessible and affordable programs that promote healthy lifestyles, family interaction, and a sense of community. My two favorite words in Parks and Recreation are all-inclusive. And that goes from our playgrounds, that goes to our restroom facilities, that goes to our youth sports. Every playground we have in the city is accessible. Every restroom facility we have is accessible. Over the last 10 years, we've either completely replaced or remodeled every restroom facility in the city. We are currently in the process of doing that with the playground equipment also. Everything out there is already accessible, but there's new, a lot of our playground equipment is over 20 years old. As you know, we replaced Kdhe last year, and we're in the process of doing Stubby this year. So all of that was accessible, but now there's new means of accessibility. We're putting in ramps. We're getting children in wheelchairs up higher on the decks, and also parents who may be confined to a wheelchair can get up on decks with their kids. So everything we do, and then in our youth sports programs, we have the scholarship program, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but we wanna make sure that everybody, whether they have physical or fiscal limitations, they are able to participate, whether it be in our sports, in our programs, or out in the parks. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview of our department as a whole. If you're not familiar with it, we have a fantastic group of employees. We have 17 full-time employees. We hire anywhere from 75 to 100 seasonals, temporaries every year. This includes your lifeguards, concession workers, building supervisors, field supervisors, gym supervisors, cashiers, on and on and on. Anywhere from 75 to 100 every year. We also utilize the minimum security inmates from Lansing Correctional Facility. They go out with our Parks Mo crew, and we use them. We have a very dedicated staff. I'm so proud of our staff. We did have one kind of major turnover this year. Marcella Williams had been a staple with the Parks and Rec Department for 23 years. She retired back in March. So she's doing well, and we hear from her every now and then. But we continue to move on and
Give her our best and thank her for her service.
I will.
I know that you gave her a good send-off, but.
Yes, she was a staple in the department for 23
Sure.
years, 23 years. And I'm also proud to say that 2 out of the 4 employee of the quarters came from our department this year. So I'm gonna publicly
That's
pat
good.
ourselves on the
Should.
back with that, as well as the employee of the year. It was, it's just you're only as good as your staff, and we have a great staff. So.
Okay, good.
Next slide, please. I mentioned briefly, 2019, I mentioned the scholarship program. This is kind of an outline of the scholarship program. You'll see in 2019, we authorized $47,000 towards the scholarship program. You can see the pie chart on the left tells you a lot of how those dollars are used by patrons. A lot of Woolman Aquatic Center passes, 34%. 24% in the youth baseball, softball, another 16 in youth basketball, and then community center passes and swim lessons. For those unfamiliar with the scholarship program, I'll just briefly explain the way that works. It's for qualified low incomes or disabled individuals that are residents of the city of Leavenworth, and they are able to be credited for $100 per year per individual in the family, and that $100 can be used towards certain Parks and Rec activities, such as those outlined in the pie chart. The way it works is if you get $100, we ask the patron will pay the first $5, and then if, say, they're signing up for softball, and I'll just use it at $40, they will pay the first $5 of that. The rest of the $35 comes out of the scholarship program. So that comes out of their $100 for the year, and then they still have $65 remaining that they can use towards other programs. It's really a great program. You see, we authorize quite a bit of money in it every year. 2019, as I said, we authorized $47,000. Of that, $16,155 was utilized.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
And I think that is a generous amount of money that's authorized, but and it's a great program. I first became aware of it when my first year on the commission in 2018. But, I mean, there is a difference or a delta between what's being used and what's being authorized. So I was just thinking, is there a way maybe to get the word out more broadly so additional families could take advantage of it? Or could we maybe look at increasing the amount of the actual scholarships for the families that actually take advantage of the program?
Those are all certainly things that we could look at when, I don't know if that would happen when we talk about fee schedules or what. Yeah. I think a lot of times you see disparity between the amount authorized and the amount used. Some families will just get them so they can get their aquatic center pass, and maybe their kids aren't interested in sports, so they'll only utilize $35 of that. So I think you see a lot of unused in that. There's a lot of people that use the scholarship program that use all $100 for their kids.
That's why I brought that second point up, and I don't know, I think it's something we could maybe circle back too, sometime in the not too
Certainly.
distant future?
Sure.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this particular part of the report? I thought this was an interesting, and I know it's a very important and good program, so thanks for the update on that.
Sure.
This is Commissioner Preisinger. I do have a question. If you go back to that chart, okay, that chart there. When I see authorized for 2019, $47,000, does that mean 470 people were authorized $100 scholarship?
That's
Am I
correct.
reading that?
Yeah.
Okay, so there were 470 people, individuals that were given a $100 scholarship, but only 161 of them used the full amount. Well, it's maybe 470 used it, but they didn't use all of it. They're only using about 1/3 of it or so.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
If you look further down in the chart, it shows recipients, the number, and then below that, it actually gives percentages, and we're right about 60% of dollars being authorized that seem to be being used.
Good point. Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Preisinger. I mean,
Okay,
and he's known about and worked with this program longer than I didn't make that connection, but that's a good point, that I didn't realize, so. Okay, any other comments or questions on this particular chart? Thanks, let's go next one.
Okay, also, as I'm sure you're all aware, working under the auspices of the City of Leavenworth Parks and Recreation Department is the River City Community Players. We had a lot of good changes with the community players this last year. We instigated for the first time a credit card machine on site at the Performing Arts Center. We were able to start taking credit cards. That started with the Tom Sawyer show in May. And then also for the first time, which we did a lot of last year, and I'll get into this more, is we started being able to do online registrations. And this is where we started. We started with the Performing Arts Center, kind of as our pilot program. We partnered with a company called Eventbrite, where you see that a lot if you're going on and buying tickets to a concert or something. That's what they do. And so we started utilizing them. We continue to work on our Tyler Parks and Recreation software that we will at some point go to. But this was kind of to bridge the gap so we could get some items online and get some online registrations, and we've really expanded it. It started here with the River City Community Centers, River City Community Players, excuse me. They did have 7 plays last year. I think our numbers were up. They did not have a jazz show last year. The popularity of those has waned here in the last few years. They tried to have one in the spring and one in the fall, and their numbers have continued to decrease on that. This year, with all the changes, they've changed around their scheduling. They're going to start. They're back in the building now on a very limited basis, just starting to work on getting some sets going. They're doing auditions for a nice family gathering. They've moved their things around this year due to the musicals across the country. Musicals are not being recommended anywhere because as you sing and you pronounce out, then the social distancing becomes much more expanded.
Right.
So
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah, they are taking they'll be doing auditions in the second week of June for a nice family gathering, and then we will also be setting up a seating arrangement where social distancing is taking place throughout. I believe that production will start the end of July.
Super.
So
Sounds good.
next slide, please. One of the big, obviously big aspects of the Parks and Rec Department is park maintenance. You'll see that collage there. It shows a lot of different pictures. We, in the Park Maintenance Department, they commonly refer to themselves as jacks of all trade and masters of none. Our Park Maintenance Department consists of 9 full-time employees that hire anywhere from 5 to 10 seasonals, as well as they utilize the state workers from LCF, as I mentioned before. We have 424 acres of parkland, of which the city crews mow roughly about 193, acres of that. We do contract out about 68 acres. just all the things you can think of that go along with the parks. We have 13 shelters, 12 playgrounds, 8 restroom facilities, over 40 ball fields, 10 irrigation systems, special events, snow removal. They offer building maintenance support to this building, to the library, to the community center, to the Performing Arts Center. A lot of dedicated and talented individuals. One thing I do like to point out on this particular slide, you see the blue and yellow tube there at the top. That is in the dog park, and our that came off of the old tube slide at Kdhe Park. As we took that down, and a lot of the materials were recycled, but we were able to, due to the ingenuity of our park staff, we were able to repurpose it, and obviously it can't be used for playground equipment, so they made this little crawl tube for the dogs, so that's up at the dog
Do
park.
the dogs like it, do you know? Or
I think so, because you actually can buy these in magazines
Okay.
for several $100s,
I'll have to
so.
take my dog there. Haven't taken her there in a long
Yeah.
time, so see if she likes it.
So we are currently fully staffed in the park maintenance department, which is good. Especially these days with a lot of work going on, just coming off of all the flood cleanup and all of that.
I do have a question. In
Yes.
terms of maintenance of park benches and tables, and do you have like an annual program to keep up with that, with all the parks and?
We do. We bring in all of our picnic tables. At any one time, we have between 100 and 110 picnic tables out in the parks. And we bring all those in during the winter time. We go through all of the hardware on them. We check all the boards. Any boards that need to be replaced, we do. Any boards with graffiti, we sand down if we can. If we can't, then we replace those. We also do a visual inspection of all of our park benches. We have some 85, 90 park benches out in the parks. We also rely on the public. You know, that those are a lot of times our best eyes, you know, are the public calling us in and saying, hey, there's a broken bench board at North Esplanade or wherever. So, but we are out in the parks routinely seeing things like that and replacing benches very routinely.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. 2019, specifically speaking, was very, very challenging from a park maintenance standpoint. The picture shows here working on with the flood. Park maintenance was it was really park maintenance spearheaded with Brian Baylor, our park superintendent, but it was such a collaborative effort. Everybody in the city. We had state workers from LCF working on that all the way up through the city manager and police chief throwing sandbags. Everybody in the city, the public works department. And you can see building the addition to the wall on the right, and then the lower left, you can see where the river would have been had we not had that up. All of that would have been in the basement of the community center. It brought a lot of challenges. Obviously, after they receded, our initial focus was on Landing Park there with Camp Leavenworth scheduled for the fall. Our park maintenance department really went after it and got all of the silt at least piled into a couple of piles. We went through all of the processes of getting the permitting in order to put it back on the banks of the Missouri River, which came later. But we got it up and piled, and then the whole park seeded, and I think they did a great job getting it looking good before Camp Leavenworth got
Yeah, it looked great, and for the public, the average person from the public didn't realize all the work that had gone into that. For your team and the broader team, I want to say thank you and great work from the city commission, because it looked the park was in perfect, other than pushing those piles into the Missouri River, and you didn't have the license to do that until I think earlier this year, right? So,
Correct.
okay, but really much appreciated.
Well,
And,
thank you very much.
Contributed. Without it, we wouldn't have had the great festival that we did. So.
Well, thank you very much. And we did, after we removed those piles, I did have a mom say, hey, you took away my sledding hill for my 2-year-old.
There's always a downside to something.
There's always a downside to something.
Yeah.
So, yes. So
Okay, good.
So that's park maintenance. The next slide kind of outlines our park shelters. The utilization of our park shelters, the popularity just continues to grow and grow and grow. we were up 19% on our rentals last year in 2019. We had big hopes to go even higher this year as we've been able to incorporate park shelter rentals onto the Eventbrite. So patrons, the citizens can now go on the city website and go to the Parks and Rec page and click on a link, and you can now rent park shelters from your home, which we haven't been able to do up until this point. You can see the usage, the most used one there, Woolman West, at 49 reservations for the year. Well, there's only 52 weeks in the year, and you think about not a lot of reservations between October and March. There's a lot of weekends where every shelter is reserved, and some of them are reserved 2 or 3 times. So our park maintenance department, they empty trash every single day, they clean restrooms every single day, they clean shelters every single day during the season, and that includes weekends as well.
So if you had showed the data for 2018, there would have been a significant amount of new reservations in 2019?
Correct, up 19%, yes.
Okay.
Yep, on the numbers,
Right.
yes.
That's
And the dollars were up also. We get a lot of, although we didn't raise prices of the shelters, we get a lot of extras, extra picnic tables or beer permits or things like that, so. Also under, of course, under the Parks and Recreation Department is the very popular Riverfront Community Center. Our number of events there, you see about a third of the way down on the right side, 1,710 events in the community center just for 2019. This was an increase of over 500 events in the building itself. But what's kind of odd is we had less large events, less weddings, less big parties, and part of that is twofold, really. Reason that we think one is the flooding concern. There was people hesitant to book there with flooding concerns because we do get to a point where things quit flowing in that building and we do have to shut the building down. The other reason is we had scaffolding up in front of the building most of the year. Phase 4 of the stone replacement project also took place last year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to projects. So when a bride comes to look at her potential wedding place and sees scaffolding, that can often be a deterrent.
That's a good point.
But overall, it continues to be a fantastic, well-loved facility. In 2019, we were voted the favorite venue in the Leavenworth Times Best of the Best contest, and that was for 2 years in a row. So we had won that award. So we're very honored. It's a fantastic resource and facility for the citizens, and you can just tell by the numbers there, the overall usage, that it gets a lot of usage. And obviously right now we're getting a lot of calls, and we're working on plans to get that thing back open, and that is exactly why. So
Do we have a date yet in terms of a projection of when it?
not yet. We've been in contact and discussions about how we're going to manage it.
Sure.
and what we're going to be able to offer and where, and we hope to set a date.
It's got to be worked. I got it.
Right.
Thank you.
Recreational sports. This is our numbers. So basketball numbers, this wouldn't be this year. This is clear back in January of last year. We struggled on our boys basketball size. I am happy to say that our youth girls sports numbers have increased for 3 straight years now. But last year, 2019, when we played in boys basketball, our numbers were hurting where we, between the ages, the grades of, and all these numbers are in the book, between the grades of 3 and 6, we only had 45 total registrants. So during that time, we tried to set up teams as best we could, and we ended up having 3rd graders and 6th graders on the same team, and that didn't work well. So we made some adjustments at the end of the year. We met with the officials over at Lansing, talked about joining forces. This year I am happy to say that our numbers were a lot better. We did have enough for a full league in just the 5th and 6th grade. And a full league in just the 3rd and 4th grade. We went ahead and partnered with Lansing and played with them anyhow, and it worked out great as far as our schedules are concerned. there's a whole listing of all of the specific numbers for every single sport in the book. One thing that has gone up quite a bit is our revenue, specifically our outside revenue in the recreational sports, and that is directly a result of two things. The concessions. We've taken all the concessions. We're doing it ourselves. It used to be contracted out. We do the concessions at Sports Field as well as Woolman Aquatic Center, and that's all done by our recreation department. And then the other is field rentals. As you all know, we continue to increase the field rentals, especially out at Sports Field, Midwest Sports Production. They had the entire complex for the first time last year in 2019. They had all 4 fields going at the same time. And we had them, I think, 4 weekends, every weekend in June last year. We had them signed up this year, but due to the pandemic, we had to cancel all of those. The other new item we did is we did a pickleball league. We did adult pickleball league in the fall down at the community center, and it was very well received. I think as everybody has heard me probably say, pickleball is the #1 growing sport in the country, and it didn't take long to fill up that pickleball league, and we plan to do that. It was very successful. We plan to do that again.
Where did they play, in the old racquetball courts, or?
They play on the basketball courts in the gym.
Okay.
Yeah, we have pickleball lines
Yeah.
lined up. Well, there's 2 courts that we have set up going east-west on those courts.
And outside, they're normally playing what, at Kdhe Park?
At Kdhe Park, correct.
Good.
Okay, next slide, please. Aquatics, obviously, another a big area for our Parks and Rec department. We have 2 areas. This is the community center aquatics slide. All the different programs, swim lessons, lifeguard training. We do a lot of lifeguard training at the indoor pool because we're able to do it. We do it over the Christmas break when students are out of school. We'll do it. We'll hold them over spring break. So we do a lot of our lifeguard training during those times to try and get our lifeguards on board. One item I do want to touch on that reared its head in 2019. There's a lot of questions and inquiries about pool temperatures and the temperature of the water in the community center pool specifically, and we monitor those very closely. We follow CDC and Kdhe guidelines regarding pool temperatures. There are very specific temperatures they say to try and avoid, not to go to 85 degrees or higher, as bacteria and algae and other organisms tend to thrive, and the water becomes a lot more difficult to monitor. For competitive pools, you're supposed to be below 82 degrees. That's a little cool for the aqua size and those types of the other water walking and a lot of the other programs we have, since we only have 1 pool. So we keep it right between 83 and 84 degrees, and it stays pretty steady. It can fluctuate by a degree if it gets really cold in the wintertime, because as you know, we have nothing but glass, a lot of glass doors around there. So I just wanted to kind of touch base. We have Nancy Baker and Connor Debin. They are both AFO certified, Aquatics Facility Operator certified. That's done by the National Parks and Recreation Association. They go through a lot of training and they do a lot of monitoring on that. So that's just kind of just to explain how we operate that and why we keep the temperature where we do.
Okay.
Of course, Woolman Aquatic Center. We had a very, very good year at Woolman Aquatic Center. They only closed for 1 day due to the weather, and we closed if the temperature's forecast to be, I think it's below 71 or 72. I'm extremely happy to say we had 0 closures for contamination. We've had sometimes 3 or 4 of those in the past. I think our patrons are understanding how important containment and protecting all the swimmers around. So that's very important. Almost 23,000 patrons came to the Woolman Aquatic Center last year. We've done a few upgrades up there, replacing some of the shade structures and things like that, and then just normal maintenance items. Pumps need to be rebuilt and things like that. But overall, the pool, which we used to think is pretty new, but all of a sudden if we were open this year, this would have been its 16th year. So it's not that new anymore, but it's still in great shape. And we've with the changes we've made with the lifeguards, we've been able to be fully staffed now for the last 2 years, and be fully operational with everything. So that has gone really well. Next slide is just the kind of a list of the fitness and leisure programs. These are all offered at the community center. All of these programs are taught or led by contracted instructors, and then we do that on an 80-20 split, 80% for the contractor, and then the city gets 20% for use of the room. So a lot of numbers there. Again, like with all of these, we look at the numbers, we look at self-supportive and what's trending and what's working well. So these are all, they're all pretty popular. Obviously, another big thing we do are our special events. Nancy Baker is our special events coordinator, along with working with aquatics. She does a fantastic job. One thing I want to make sure everybody's aware of is our special events are completely self-supportive. We have a couple of free events, the Easter egg hunt, the Touch a Truck, and National Trails Day, but all of our other special events make money that offsets that. So there's no money for buying Easter eggs or anything like that, coming out of tax dollars.
Right.
We also, a lot of the other revenues from these special events go to offset the costs of the scholarship program and things like that. A lot of good, successful special events.
Good.
And the final slide I have is just to talk about some of the projects we had in 2019. We had a lot of exciting projects. First and foremost, starting right here, right outside this building. I think we unearthed about a fourth of the building that nobody had seen in quite a while. Yeah. With the new landscaping.
Very nice.
So I think that turned out well. It was done by Oak Creek Nursery. It was spearheaded by Parks and the whole design and working with them. Of course, the Doherty Park basketball court resurfacing turned out really well. It's just a great upgrade to a great asset to the community.
Definitely.
The couple of the neighborhood ball fields, Doherty Park and Jefferson Park ball fields. These are the last two ball fields that we've done work on, where we replaced the infield with the ball field fines, replaced fencing, replaced fence fabric, added fencing down the baselines as needed. So now every ball field in the city of Leavenworth, we've done that too here over the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, something like that. Good. We did add a little bit of fencing down the first base line out at Eagles as a result of some of the baseball practices going over there and balls being overthrown at first. Yeah. Upgraded the fire alarm in the community center. I know that's doesn't sound real exciting, but it's exciting if it's a big responsibility. There were some gaps, some dead spaces, some pull stations, as well as upgrading the hood in the kitchen. New chairs out at Woolman Aquatic Center, some light poles up on North Esplanade. The Stubby Park renovation project, the design was done last year. Of course, construction's happening now, but you'll recall the initial playground replacement was in the 2019 CIP. And then as staff got to talking about it, what can we do to make that more of a destination type playground? Where can we find funds throughout the CIP and other resources? And we were able to do that, and it's gonna be a fantastic project. It'll hopefully take some pressure off of Kdhe and some of the other crowded playgrounds. Mm-hmm. Stubby Park monument sign design and installation. This has been coming for a long time. Again, another great collaborative effort from city staff as well as city commission. I think we were here maybe at least 3 or 4 times going through different designs and I think the end result, yes. I think it turned out to be a very professional, good looking sign. It's very popular. Yes. We get a lot of requests for things we put up on there. Good. Just a few last ones here. The replace the carpet in the Riverview room with the LVT. That's turned out really well. Nice. As I mentioned before, the final phase 4 of the community center stone replacement project. And then we also replaced a few windows and all of the tinting in the pool area at the community center.
On that, on the stone replacement, did it go pretty well in general?
It went really well.
Okay.
Mid-Continental Restoration was the general contractor on that, and they were fantastic. They're actually there right now doing some final tuck pointing, that it got too cold in the winter and they didn't want to do it. They said we'll be back in the spring. They got a couple weeks worth of work. They've been fantastic to work with.
Good.
They're very responsive. Foreman on the job every single day, superintendent on the job every single day. They've been really
We spent a
fantastic.
fair amount of time with you laying out to the commission just how that was gonna go, the various phases and things like that. I remember talking about the stone and
Right.
that type of thing, so that's good. That's good to know.
With that, yes, any questions you have about anything? That was my last slide.
Fellow commissioners, any questions or comments for Mr. Grant?
Yes, I have a question.
Commissioner Bowder, go ahead.
Commissioner Bowder?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Some of the pickleballers out at Kdhe Park are asking about the restroom there. There's still a porta potty out there, and I don't know why there's a porta potty and not the restroom being used, but when is that gonna open?
When we open up all the parks, as far as all the shelters, as with all of the, with all the picnic tables and everything going back out, it was when we will open up all the restrooms. We haven't set an exact date for that as of yet, but it should be here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, well, we thought maybe it was because of COVID issues, but I mean, the porta potty is not that clean. It's more clean than the restroom would be, so they wondered why, and they're anxious to get the bathrooms open.
Right.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Grant?
Commissioner Leonhard, yeah, Steve, I think you and your crew does a great job. I really like the scholarship fund because that includes everybody. It has a chance to participate in activities and the variety of activities that are offered. When's Stubby Park, when is that slated to be done, do you know?
All of the equipment is in. They've poured the perimeter sidewalks and all of the under drains are in. So they'll now start working on expanding the parking lot as well as putting in all of the surfacing. So weather, of course, a lot of it's weather, depending on the weather, but it should be here, within the next month, I would say, weather depending.
Okay, and one more question, and this is just curiosity. I was looking at the appendix here on the parks maintenance, and there's this little park between Michigan and Pennsylvania. It's called Kane Park.
Right.
Are you familiar with it?
Yes, I am.
Is that just a little city park? I mean, it has a sign that's like City of Leavenworth Park.
It is, yeah.
You know, any history about that?
It's actually, it has I think it has a slide there and a set of swings, and it does have, it's just a little kind of a vacant area that's between the houses there, and it is considered a city park. I know it's on our commercial contractors that mow that park. It doesn't have a lot. It has a set of swing sets and a slide.
Yeah, no, I think people forget about it because I think it's more since it's enclosed, with houses all around it, and you have to go between a house to get through the alleyway, so.
Right, I believe
No, that's all.
I believe it's right behind former Commissioner Kdhe's house.
Yes.
I believe.
So, yeah, maybe he had it put in, I don't know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Grant?
This is Commissioner Preisinger. Back to Stubby Park. I know they're working on the parking lot, doing the final stages. Can kids use the equipment now or not?
No, not at this time. Stubby Park is
Okay.
not open. There's no protective surfacing down underneath, so they have it fenced off with protective fencing around it to keep people off of it.
Okay, and other thing I'd like to mention, a longtime member of the Parks and Recreation Board, IMAC soccer coach for over 30 years,
Yes.
Mr. Frank Mercedes, passed away this past week, and he was a great supporter of all parks and rec activities in the city
Yes.
for the last 3 or 4 decades. He'll be sorely missed.
Yes.
And I know that he's been on your board and has done very good work for you. So just wanted to give my condolences to the Frank Mercedes family. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
Commissioner
Price.
Leonhard, me as well,
Right.
to Frank Mazetas, family condolences.
I think certainly from me and from the entire commission, I'm sure we all knew him, and I had a son who didn't go to IMAC, but with what he did with youth soccer, I mean, he had the opportunity to be coached by Coach Mazetas, and he will be missed, and so thank you, Commissioner Preisinger, for mentioning that. Any other questions or comments?
I just have one more thing. I know, Steve, anytime I talk to you, it seems like I'm complaining about something, but I think the general public doesn't realize how much of the city you cover here and all the different projects that you do. And I think you're doing a great job, and everything looks wonderful. Greg and I were over in Kdhe Park down by the playground the other day and looking at all the trees and stuff. The trees around our community are just amazing. You guys do so much, a variety of things. So I think the general public doesn't realize what all you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Bowder.
I do have one more question, just in a general sense. I mean, with what's happened the last 3 months, basically, with COVID-19, I mean, you had a great 2019, started off with a great 2020, and now we've gone into this slump because of what's happened. But have you thought through, just in generating and I know a lot of the business, a lot of our patrons should come back, but have you thought about maybe to kind of help that along once we get to the point where we can like re-advertise and things like that, to get the number of people and the number of events back up in the Riverfront Community Center, for instance? Have you thought through that a little bit, or?
Sure. We've been investigating any marketing places, ideas that we can do. Tammy Metzger, our community center manager, she attends throughout the Kansas City metro area, you know, wedding seminars and things as such, conventions and such. Every time we go to start one of our new programs, we say, what can we do to get the word out better? And we actually, with our basketball program last fall, when we were advertising for that, we piggybacked off an idea that we did from Camp Leavenworth. You recall we put all those signs out, those yard signs out at Camp Leavenworth.
Yeah.
So we decided, hey, let's do that for our youth programs. And we partnered with the USD 453 school district and said, hey, can we put some of these strategically on your school lawns? Which we did, and it just so happened we put them where parents would be sitting in their cars while they waited to pick up their kids in there in line. So, and then that, along with the ability to be able to register online with everything, that has helped out tremendously. The other thing that, if there's any silver lining that has come out of this pandemic regarding Parks and Recreation, I think it really brings to light the importance of our parks. You know, it was the one thing, you know, yes, the facilities, we had to manage those and close some of the facility down, but the parks never shut down. Their open spaces are so important. Just to get outside, and I think that this pandemic brought that to light, not only in our community but across the country. We have a dedicated staff to keep, like I said, we only have 9 full-time employees and 424 acres. They do a great job. There is a lot of work. There's a lot of things out there to do, and there's never a shortage of things to do. So
That's a very good point. Okay, any other further final questions or comments for Mr. Grant?
Yes. Commissioner Wilson here. First, I just want to say thank you to you and your staff for all of your hard work. We love the parks. So looking forward to me playing on Stubby Park, because I think I can fit on the playground. Just wanted to ask you a question. Do you have any ideas or any development that's going to be taking place at the Southside Park? Anything creative that you have in mind that you plan on doing with the Southside Park? Because I know it's a lot of space, but you know it's really small equipment that's there. So just wanted to ask you, do you have any ideas with that part?
yeah, Brian Bailey and myself have met on site. We've talked about that's our next site. Once we get all of our current composite playground structures up to date, As you know, we're doing Stubby now, and then we're gonna do Doherty next. We would like to put in a composite structure at Southside Park. As you're aware, if you've been there, it has individual pieces. It has a track ride and a slide and, and just a handful of individual pieces. We would like to develop, and probably up in the northeast corner where there's kind of a natural drive in up by that big oak tree up there. We've looked at what can we do up there to get a composite structure for that playground. As you go downhill, as you know, it's on the side of a hill. The rest of the park, it's difficult from a erosion standpoint. But up top there, I think definitely that's the next place we'd like to put in a new playground, not a replacement, but a new playground. So you may be seeing that coming down in the CIP requests here in the next few years. Once we get caught up with what we have, we want to take care of what we have first, and then add, and that's exactly the spot where we want to do it.
Okay,
Yeah,
is that
appreciate
answer?
you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you, Mr. Grant. Very, very good report, great work, and extend our appreciation from the commission to your staff.
I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Next is review 2019 through 2024 Stormwater Management Program for Kdhe permit.
I believe our Public Works Director, Mike McDonald's on the screen for this item.
Hello, Mr. McDonald. Got to unmute, Mike. Mr. McDonald, you need to unmute.
There, how about that?
Good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. This is a review of much of this material we have touched on previously. So I'm kind of shortcut through the bureaucracy at the front and talk about the substance toward the back of the policy report. But this is, at the end of this process, we should have a document that meets EPA and Kdhe requirements, as well as guides staff actions for the next few years. The city is required to address stormwater quality through the 6 minimum control measures that have been identified by the EPA. And Kdhe has identified a variety of activities that the city can participate in to meet the objectives within these 6 categories. And this policy report is really about that. The state identified a lot of activities that we do. They've identified a lot of activities that there's really no practical way for us to do them. But there were enough activities that we as staff identified what we believe that we can do and complete within the terms of the permit to meet our goals. There is a little table at the top of the second page of the policy report. It lists the 6 control measures, and it has a column for points required for 2021 and 2022. These are points that are based on the activities we'll talk about shortly. And staff has recommended points in the second column that total in excess of the minimum required. It is our goal to follow the state's guidance and to work to have a properly managed stormwater system, but it is not required that we do obtain more points than are the minimum required. However, much of the activities we do, they've told us we can't stop doing them, so we think we should be getting some points for those efforts. We've had a series of meetings. Assuming that this is found acceptable by the commission, our goal is to have essentially a public info meeting away from the commission meeting environment, where the public can come ask questions of us in person or online. We're not sure of the format yet. And ultimately, we would bring this plan to the commission for a review later on this fall. The document that we are preparing is titled the Stormwater Management Program, and the draft document in the policy report is pages 25 to 42. And there are basically 4 chapters, if you will. One is an introductory narrative about flooding in Leavenworth. Second is why we're here this evening is identification of the committed best management practices. And I thought it interesting to note specifically, particularly since we address it in the narrative, that since 1980, the city has replaced 15 bridges on the major creeks and streams in the community as part of a focused effort to improve water quantity management in the community. That's a pretty substantial number.
Yeah.
And then, if I just find it interesting, the narrative from the FEMA flood studies, we retyped it a little bit, but it is included in the SMP document as well. So we will work through these categories that are listed in the stormwater management program. That they begin on page 34 of the agenda. There are 6 sheets. We have identified not every one that we believe that we can be committed to. As an example, on public education and outreach, interestingly enough, you have to have 4 points for that category, and you can get 3 of them if you have a web page for stormwater. So this is not a real strenuous exercise. The first 5 years of the permit, I suspect it will become more complicated down the road. Then we identified a number of other topics in this category that we're already doing, such things as we have an annual meeting with detention basin owners that we believe falls into several categories. There are on the new storm drains we put on, there's a little symbol that says don't dump this drains to the river, and it's got a little fish diagram on it. We have several handy handouts that we've made over the years. They're online. We believe that those constitute sufficient advertising and such to make meet the goal for other points. Spring cleanup counts. The 3 Mile Creek program counts. The PIO office does occasional little stories or news releases about stormwater issues in the community, rain gardens and things like that. And so going on to the other categories, the things that we do, we've talked about in the first category are duplicated in the second one in some cases, but the spring cleanup falls into that. There is where we train the groups, neighborhood groups, how to look for illicit discharges and who to contact if they see them. As part of our annual stormwater meeting we have with the other owners, we provide them draft spill management programs that have the list of the phone numbers to contact if they see something that is not appropriate coming in or out of their pond or detention basin. The illicit discharge and detection section, that is basically identifying illegal discharges into the waters within the community. We have a very robust inventory program. We have recently upgraded our GIS and GPS where our engineers and our stormwater crew can inventory the facilities that we have, the inlets and the junction boxes and the outlets. They can take pictures of it. They can rate a couple of key items. It's automatically uploaded. And this will show that we have, in fact, been inspecting things. And if it's needs work, the work is also identified within the GIS that we use to create work schedules. Construction site runoff. Similarly, this is one that we were severely beat about the head and shoulders by the EPA. We have robustly created a land disturbance permit with suggested erosion control measures and some documentation that we believe will meet the requirements. A key part, I believe, of the upgrades to come, mostly in early 2021, will be to upgrade our current guidelines, which rely on Mid-America Regional Council manual for kind of the best management practices type things, and the American Public Works Association design guidelines for managing water quantity. Change them from guidelines to requirements, and that gets you almost, of course, all the points that you need. But that will be a change in philosophy on the part of the city toward our development community. But the truth is, developers of most any size, particularly those that are from out of town, are already doing these things, and the ones that are in town are certainly familiar with them. The fifth section is post-construction stormwater management. This is making sure if we built something that we maintain it, making sure if someone else has built something that they maintain it. Goes back to our annual meetings. Our little inspection app is being used on that to investigate or at least inspect ponds and the biodomes that we've built and all that kind of stuff downtown. We take pictures of them, make comments on them, and get sucked up into the database. And it is a great leap forward for us as a staff, being able to use the technology that we have invested in as a city. And the last category is pollution prevention, good housekeeping practices. How do we collect the trash off the street? We have a street sweeping program that we get points for. We have a requirement, or we have a household hazardous waste program that's, I think it's mentioned in another category that we share with the county. There is we have licensed applicators, both the Parks Department and Street Department, for herbicides and pesticides. We're already doing that. We will create a document that says that that's a requirement. We'll probably send mailings out to other people that may be licensed or companies that operate within the city limits, reminding them of proper practices. And then if you have a GIS system, you get 3 points. So it's just interesting how the points are structured. So the question this evening is if the commission feels that these are reasonable goals, if you believe that this will guide us to meeting our obligations to the state and federal government, if there's something that you believe should be on here that is not, remember, we have to fit it into one of the categories the state gave us. Or if there's something on here that you think is a reach too far and that we should not pursue that, then we can reduce its emphasis. At the end of the year, we have to have the number of points that are required for that year, which I believe the activities that we've identified will let us do that.
Any questions or comments for Mr. McDonald from commissioners?
Yes, Commissioner Preisinger. Appreciate Mr. McDonald's work and his staff's work on this. I think it's very comprehensive. You know, if I'd have a couple things, I'm not that knowledgeable in the nuts and bolts of all of this. And quite frankly, I think that's why we hire Mr. McDonald and his staff to do it. And it seems very appropriate to me. And I thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, Commissioner Leonhard, just a quick question. On this one area that's illicit discharge detection and elimination, on this one part, when it says inspect by televising pipelines or direct visualization of open channel drainage, and it says within a 12-month period. So in that 12-month period, are those certain areas, I guess, inspected each one time in the 12-month period?
I discussed this very subject with the state stormwater fellow that we deal with. And he said you have to meet the threshold each year for footage that would be inspected. And it can be a television inspection, it can be a visualization inspection. Once again, we have a program in place where we use our television crew to TV a fair number of storm sewers, but also the wastewater crews inspect the creek crossings. There's 20-something of them in the community where the main sewer lines cross the creeks to look for damage or leaks or other problems. And they document this. They look upstream and they look downstream, and they can see a few hundred feet or a quarter mile or more up or downstream, and that counts toward the footage that we're talking about. So we will be seeing the same footage inspected every year, but additionally, the TV crew and other inspections will count toward this as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Thank you.
Commissioner
Good
Wilson?
job.
Commissioner Wilson or Commissioner Bowder, any comments or questions from Mr. McDonald?
Commissioner Wilson, just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Mike McDonald, for your hard work. You always impress me anytime you do a presentation, so thank you for everything.
You're quite welcome, sir.
Commissioner Bowder, I have
Go ahead.
no further questions.
Okay.
Good plan, thank you.
I have two things, Mr. McDonald, and it's obvious that you and your team are taking advantage of the advances in technology to have this be a very detailed and comprehensive report and plan. So do you see anything coming up in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years that would even, in terms of technology that might even allow, more progress in this particular area? Is there anything on the horizon with respect to additional technology that will help?
Well, we've far surpassed what I envisioned we ought to be able to do at this point. But there's probably the opportunity to create a direct link for people with their cell phones that see something that they don't understand in the stormwater systems of the community to post a picture and an email directly to our stormwater office, which is essentially upstairs City Hall.
Okay.
But big new things. We've crossed the big hurdle where we're getting people to take water quality seriously over the last 10 years, and
Right.
that was a stretch. We have worked with a variety of large and small developers to find a way to do projects that meet their needs. I'm just hoping that we can find a balance in these big city documents that we have used well. And I guess one big thing that's coming is finally the greater Kansas City area has figured out that water quantity and water quality are very much related to each other. And so why are they having two documents? So they're going to integrate those two documents into one over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Which I find fascinating.
Okay.
But I don't see anything major technology-wise coming at us.
Okay. And the only other question I have is for a bridge, and I think it was the first page of the spreadsheet of bridges within the city, and there was one that was rated fair, well, at least one that was rated fair. Most of them looked like they were in good condition, but so if one's rated fair, what are you thinking? Are we gonna have to do some maintenance or renovation sometime in the near future for a bridge that's rated fair?
Not necessarily. A lot of that can be related to the sidewalk is too narrow, you lose points, or the approaches aren't as you can't see as well coming onto the bridge as you'd like. They do a little report for us every time we do this bridge inspection of maintenance we need to do something about, and we try to get that scheduled with our forces or with contractors. So a bridge that's rated as fair is I don't believe is anything to be too concerned about.
Okay.
It's interesting that the Broadway at 3 Mile Creek was built in 1991. There's a lot of stories about that. It seems like yesterday, but gosh, that's
Almost 30 years ago. So.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's some wear and tear on these bridges that happens over time.
Right. Okay, good rundown, and we're gonna get this again at some point in the future to approve, right? At a meeting, I would think, in terms of the actual plan, or what's next?
Yes, sir. The next thing hopefully is to have the opportunity for the public to
That's right.
comment on
Right.
essentially our work
Yep.
plan. And then we would take that information, the pages in the policy report, I think they're page 15 to 42. We would make changes to that if we need to, then ask the commission to approve that.
Okay, good. You told us that before, and I didn't pay attention close enough, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your report tonight, and we will go on to the next agenda item, which is 2020-2021 City Commission goals.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, Paul Kramer, City Manager speaking. Each spring, the City Commission gets together and goes over the goal document. We don't start from scratch. We adopt a comprehensive set of goals each year. So then we undertake a review of the goals. We modify goals as need be. We eliminate goals that we've completed. And then the commission or staff sometimes adds goals to that. We usually do that in a half-day session. Due to COVID-19 this year, as with a lot of things, the process changed and we did not get the opportunity to get together to do that. We had a robust discussion last year and added a few goals. And so I think the commission's guidance was, let's get some informal input, let's go forward, let's get something in place. And then as the year moves on, as we move to a more an environment where we can get together more often, maybe we could look at this again in the fall, but let's go ahead and get something in place ahead of the budget so staff can use that as sort of a guiding document for the budget. So what you have before you is the goals document. We do have some additions, some modifications, and some deletions. Again, the proviso is the annual City Commission goals are not designed as an exhaustive list of efforts to be undertaken by city staff over the next year, but instead represent guidance to staff on allocating resources to big picture City Commission priorities. And as again I mentioned, the goal setting took a different form in 2020 due to COVID and then the restrictions that we're going to have with budget, personnel, and meeting restrictions. So I'm going to go through each section briefly and sort of summarize the changes that we have. The first item that we have is economic development. Economic development has three different subsections: business attraction, retention, and expansion, downtown development and revitalization. And under that item, you will see the first addition that we made. And the addition is to undertake review of city ordinances related to building safety, appearance, and dilapidation to determine whether they are adequate to protect the city's interest in maintaining a safe, aesthetically pleasing, and vibrant downtown. The commission has talked about the look and feel of the entire city, but also the downtown as the major tourist destination and a place of pride for our residents. We understand that they have to comply, the businesses downtown and specifically the vacant ones, have to comply with existing code, property code maintenance issues. But I think this would be designed to get a little bit deeper into our city ordinances and maybe do a review of some other cities with historic downtown to see if there are any opportunities, not looking at targeting businesses or business owners, but any opportunities to make improvements or force improvements to certain dilapidated structures within the downtown. So we would work on that with myself, Taylor Tedder, our Assistant City Manager, Julie Hurley, and of course David Waters, our City Attorney. So that's in addition to the economic development item. Under community improvement, subhead A, community appearance and image, we are able to cross off one of the items, the Adopt the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code. We did that along with a number of updates to city codes across public works, planning and community development, and the fire department through 2019 and earlier this year. A big comprehensive improvement by city staff to get those codes updated. We did add on that one 2 goals under community appearance and image, item 6 and item 7, which once we get rid of Roman numeral 2, they'll become item 5 and item 6. The first one relates to the ongoing process of the city's comprehensive plan, Leavenworth 2030, First City Future Forward. The comprehensive plan update will shape the future of planning and development in Leavenworth over the next 10 years. So the goal is to successfully adopt the update to the plan. Obviously, there's much more involved in that. Ensure public outreach, ensure a quality product as we move through the process. But as that's such an important part of what the city does, we added that to the goals for the upcoming 12 months. The next item is to review the status of the Adopt a Park program, to identify the level of activity at adopted parks, and to pursue groups, community service organizations, churches, and any other types of groups to adopt and try to get every park adopted in the city of Leavenworth in the next 12 months. Volunteers are always difficult to come by, but there are good organizations out there. So our goal is not to kick any organizations that's adopted a park, but just to sort of do a little bit more on monitoring what kind of activities going on in the adopted park program. It can be maybe a tool to help our park staff, as we've heard Steve talk about. They have a lot on their plate, so this could potentially be another tool just to make the city a little more aesthetically pleasing, and maybe remove some trash and do some improvements in some parks. Under community amenities, the one addition I did want to make that's not on here, I think a glaring error as I went through this again, was public transportation. The commission has over and over indicated a dedication to pursuing public transportation going forward in this budget process. So if you'll allow me the freedom to work on the wording before we bring it back to the June 9th, but I would anticipate adding an item, or suggest adding an item of a commitment to fund a public transportation for in the next budget cycle. Under public safety, we eliminated under fire the Adopt the International Fire Code, which we've done and completed earlier in the year. Item 4 under Roadways and Infrastructure, sub-item A, roadways. 2 items were added following some recent news. Item 4, following Kdhe's announcement of the Centennial Bridge making the list of the 40 projects identified in the Ike 10-year state transportation program, the City Commission and City Manager must continue advocacy through key stakeholders and employ all means to secure design contract and funding to build the new bridge before 2030. So we've, as I've mentioned in some correspondence with the Commission, we cleared a hurdle, but now it's time to continue that pressure and get that bridge designed and built. And then the item after that was also added, work with Kdhe and state elected officials to secure funding, full or partial, for improvements, essentially of 4th Street from Limit to Metropolitan, with an emphasis on the stretch of 4th Street running through the downtown. Staff has participated in the last 2 Kdhe funding cycles, cost share funding cycles, specifically for 4th Street through downtown. One I think is still pending. We were unsuccessful in one, but I think we continue to push for those, as that's a big issue in the community, 4th Street through the downtown. But not discounting Limit all the way to Metropolitan with some Kdhe cost share. Under infrastructure, I think it's important to cross off the implement stormwater maintenance program with transparent reporting, outreach, and updates. We are not moving away from stormwater. In fact, we're leaning in, doing more projects, but we did accomplish that task. If there was a desire to have something more of phase 2, I could add some wording for June 9th and the adoption of continued stormwater maintenance program with transparent and timely reporting, accountability to the public, and those types of things. Certainly could do that. Under infrastructure, we also added actively pursue and implement a plan to reach a 90-day emergency reserve in the wastewater treatment budget. Evaluate different methods to create the plan, including up into and including looking at potentially a temporary citizen advisory committee. We've brought this to the commission. Black & Veatch was hired to do a study. The city has about a 3-day emergency operations budget for that division, that operation, which is far below industry standards. Of course, the problem is that you need revenue to reach that 90-day, that industry standard emergency reserve plan. So the idea was the commission, as they get recommendations from a park and recreation board, potentially there could be some use in a citizen advisory board be set up to sort of look at that study and provide a recommendation to the commission or some other active. But it's something I think we really need to turn our attention to over the next 12 months to just put that operation on safer and more firm footing. Under outreach and transparency, the city's website was completed. Usability, transparency, and mobile capabilities. The website launched and it's up. I think we had almost finished it by the time this document was put forward last year, but we've certainly finished it by now. Under openness, we did issue the RFQ for the comprehensive land use plan, and as you've heard just a couple minutes ago, we've essentially added phase 2 of that project to the city commission goals for the next 12 months. Under item 6, other items receiving general support, item B is new. This was brought to me by Mayor Griswold. Explore and pursue a secure IT solution that allows city commissioners to access key documents, informational reports, photos, and other items pertinent to their governance duties and responsibilities. Anecdotally, one of the things that comes up each time we get a new commissioner or a commissioner who maybe hasn't addressed an issue in a while is that I've created a lot of memos for the commission on how sidewalks work, how right-of-ways work, how certain items work. And this would be sort of a central repository for everything from project photos to past memos to potentially past weekly reports that you could search through for that information. Or I could indicate that a report was available on this site, again, to reduce the amount of emails as far as the size of the emails, attachments and such like that. So something that would also help new commissioners, we would put the excerpts of the ordinances about the city manager's duties, for example, or the city commissioner's duties, just information for the commission in a single source or single location. And then finally, one thing we added, quarterly reports, the bottom, we do the school board. We've added the police department. That encompasses animal control, crime mapping, could be the annual report, it could be an update on initiatives, but just sort of keeping in our forefront of getting the police department and their activities in front of the commission and in front of the public on about a quarterly basis to go over, so much happens there, to go over what's going on and some items that Pat Kitchens and his team are working on. So that's what's before you tonight. If you have any additions, we can certainly add those, and then it will be before you again on June 9th for adoption.
Questions or comments from commissioners?
This is Commissioner Bowder. I have just some questions about things that are currently on here.
Okay.
Are we actively pursuing a grocery store for North Leavenworth?
That's a good question. I believe that the grocery store group that Mary Dwyer and her team had worked with, I don't believe they're pursuing that anymore.
No.
Actively pursuing, we certainly, any developer looking at anywhere in the Northeast, the first thing we bring up with them is, have you contacted grocers or grocery retailers? So that's about the extent of our active pursuit. Is every developer that we speak to interested in the north part of the city, we start with a grocery store and see if that is a viable piece of their development or not.
Okay. I really like the idea of what you were talking about, adding the documents and informational reports, because I know I still need to refer, I mean, even though I've been here for a while, I need to refer back to things. So I think, it would save you a lot of time too. If we can access whatever we need without having to call you all the time, it would be a good thing for all of us, I think. And making, everything available online, of course, is really good. I think it looks good. I mean, I know we haven't had the opportunity to really sit and talk about everything, but I'm glad you put transportation in there again. And, Havens Park and some other things. So I think it looks great.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
Commissioner, that was the only question that I had was, were we actively still pursuing a grocery store? So I'm glad you asked it, Ms. Nancy.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Leonhardt, anything?
Yeah, maybe we could explore improvements and maybe expansion to the recycling center as an option.
Can you just explain that just a little bit more? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but can you give a few details of what you're thinking about?
Well, I think when I took a tour of it, they were looking at expanding it or wanting to expand the recycling center more.
Yeah, we've had some conversations about making it a little more accessible, a little more, for the lack of a better term, a little more pleasing an experience, larger. I think it's outgrown its current footprint and its current use. And while functional, it probably could use either look at something in that area or potentially an expansion somewhere else on the property. So we can absolutely add that. If the commission's okay.
Yeah,
with that.
I'm open to it. Is there any pushback on that? I know that, well, I know it was a popular program, but I found out it was even more popular when we had to shut it down for a month in terms of some of the emails that I got. So I'm comfortable with it as, if my fellow commissioners are, putting it down, keeping some visibility over it. The only, the one that I would say in terms of the one that you had mentioned, Mr. Kramer, under roadways and infrastructure, under infrastructure, the kind of the phase 2 for the city stormwater management program, I think just, I mean, I think that program's going very, very well, but just trying to keep it on the radar, I would be supportive of some language with respect to a goal.
Okay. Consensus on that?
Is there a consensus on that?
Commissioner Preisinger, please restate what you said.
Yeah, well,
I heard you.
Mr. Kramer had talked about under roadways and infrastructure, under B, infrastructure, you know, we took out implement stormwater maintenance program with transparent reporting, outreach, and updates, but I thought there should be something just to kind of, you know, the continued implementation, kind of the phase 2 of what we're into now, just so we keep some, like, leave it on the radar screen so we can just keep abreast of it, and the city manager can update us periodically, because it is an important program from the standpoint of resources we're putting into, and also the improvement of the infrastructure within the city. So that's what I was thinking. Mr. Commissioner Preisinger, are you okay with that?
What section, what subparagraph? I just want to make sure I'm
It's
looking at mine right now.
paragraph 4, and it's roadways and infrastructure. It's B, infrastructure, and it would be a replacement for number 3, basically, right? I mean, we're taking number 3 out, Roman numeral 3, and replacing it with this more, looking at it from the standpoint of continuity or a phase 2, just looking at monitoring the implementation of what we got going on now.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. We're actually doing that right now, aren't we? I mean, we get updates on how we're spending our $1.3 million a year. Am I correct in that assumption, or am I off base on something here?
Right, I think it's just, also, it's the only place that we have the stormwater program, which is a pretty new and big and important program in our goals. So, you know, something, again, to keep it in the goals, some wording indicating what we're doing going forward.
Keeping some visibility over it. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but not that we are going to change. I mean, we're getting good updates as far as that particular program. I just thought that, you know, if there's a new commissioner that comes in or something, you know, they could look at that. I think it's just important to keep some visibility over it, but that's me.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, other commissioners, any problem with that?
Yeah, Commissioner Wilson, I'm okay with it as well.
Okay. Commissioner Leonhardt, are you okay with that one?
Yeah, Commissioner Leonhardt, I'm okay with that.
Commissioner Bowder?
Me too.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's, are there any other comments or questions as far as what Mr. Kramer has gone over with us? I think it's a very good rundown, and with the caveats or the input that we just talked about in the last 5 minutes or so, I think that this would come to us for approval sometime in the not too distant future?
Next week.
Okay. All right, so good rundown, and we'll look forward to getting it next week for a final review and hopefully approval. Okay, thank you. That completes the formal agenda items, so we're going to go around the horn and we're going to begin with Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, just a quick information for the commission. This afternoon, Mayor Griswold and I had the opportunity to participate in a Zoom conference with Senator Moran. The topic was an update from the federal perspective on some of the federal stimulus and programs related to the COVID CARES Act. He talked a little bit about the payment protection or the payroll protection plan, and some other areas that Congress was getting involved in. On that call, and I don't want to miss anybody, some people were going on and off, but we had Rudy Klopfer, the director of the VA Eastern Healthcare System, Lieutenant General Rainey, Commanding General of the Combined Arms Center in Fort Leavenworth, Superintendents Keith Misbagel and Dr. Mike Roth, State Senator Kevin Braun, again Mayor Griswold and I, John Schultz, the VP of Admissions and Marketing for St. Mary, Steve Jack, Jerry Riley, and Mark Laughley, the County Administrator, among others that kind of came and went on that call. The City of Leavenworth was able to share a little bit of our concern about the lack of direction we've gotten with our CDBG funds. That announcement was made April 7th, that we were awarded $201,000 that we were trying to get to our third-party agencies and our businesses. And as of today, 2 months later, we still don't have the final approval from HUD to be able to dispense those funds. So it's not for a lack of trying. We want to get those dollars out as quickly as we can. And I think we also indicated, Mayor Griswold, myself, the county administrator, that there's $1.25 billion of federal money sitting at the state of Kansas level designated for local cities and municipalities to help offset some of the revenue losses, program losses, maintenance or projects deferred. And can we please expedite getting those funds so we can continue to do the projects that we had planned to do? So I think that
Yes, that was
covers
good.
the call.
Good. Yes, excellent. Thank you. So we're going to go around the horn with the commissioners, and we will begin with Commissioner Wilson.
Yeah, I just encourage everyone, let us continue to stand together and grow together during these trying times. And most of all, let us continue to pray for our community. God bless.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Leonhard?
Yeah, Commissioner Leonhard, I have a little something.
Okay.
I'm just gonna read it off. The definition of a hero is a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. Who comes to mind? Master Sergeant David Royer, assigned to the 705th Military Police Battalion of the 15th Military Police Brigade at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. That day, on May 27th, you assessed the situation quickly and took action. You saved lives. I commend you for this. You are a true hero. Thank you. God bless you and your family. I want to also thank the City of Leavenworth Police Department under leadership Chief Pat Kitchens, Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office under leadership Sheriff Andy Dedeke, as well as the Platte County and Highway Patrol law enforcement. Teamwork comes to mind, protecting and serving the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice statement, very pertinent and timely. Thank you, Commissioner Leonhard. Commissioner Preisinger?
As we all know, the world and especially our country are going through very difficult times right now. I just hope and pray that calm minds can prevail. We need leadership at all levels, from the city level all the way up to the national level, to put words of conciliation, of calmness out. We don't need leaders at any level to throw gasoline on a fire. Let's get through these times. Let's solve the issues or work on policies that can solve the issues in the future. Let's not fight one another. Let's just accomplish our goals as a country, as a community, and as a country. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Preisinger. Thank you for your comments and your remarks. Commissioner Bowder?
Oh, I wasn't expecting you to call on me last. Anyway, I just want to say, well, echo everything that has been said tonight about the horrible things that have been happening to the African American community over all of these years, and it's just it's got to change. That's all I got to say about that. But you talked about the community development block grant money. United Way's been waiting for that so we can disperse our funds. United, just to let the public know, and I'll put out a public comment on this, but United Way just raised over $70,000 through a FEMA grant and a COVID, the CARES, part of the CARES Act. And we distributed we will be distributing funds as soon as we get that given to us, to the Interfaith Community of Hope, Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, the Leavenworth Mission, and the Alliance Against Family Violence. That'll be for food and for shelter and for rent and utilities. So whenever United Way also has some funds that we've been raising, but we are waiting to distribute those until we find out where the community development block grant goes. And then, if there are holes in the community that have not been plugged,
Yes.
we will work on that. So we look forward to finding that out. Anyway, I want to thank the community for all of the fundraising that they've been doing, all of the money that United Way has brought in. The generosity of our communities is amazing. And we've all pulled together for this. But they're putting out the, what do you call it, the rent, utility, whatever, discharges. And so we've got to, we are going to get hit a lot harder in the next few months. So I think what United Way and some others is looking at is the long-term effects of these for our organizations, because they provide such a critical service to our community and we need to keep them afloat. So that's all I got to say about that. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowder, and I'd just like to, you wrote a letter to the editor, which was a very powerful and poignant letter about a week ago, and it was very inspiring, and thank you for doing that, and talking about in a little more detail and adding some aspects of your personal story, which I thought were great, to what you just talked about. So thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership, not only on the commission, but also in terms of the United Way of Leavenworth County, which is doing such great work, and particularly during these unprecedented times that our city and the county and our overall community are facing. So thank you. The only thing I would say is that the city manager ran down the meeting. It lasted for about an hour and a half. I thought maybe he could do that every 6 months or something like that. I thought it was a good exchange of ideas, and he didn't seem rushed. He was a little bit late because I guess the minority leader Schumer had kept him in the Senate chamber for a little bit longer than he wanted, but that's okay. It was a good session, and maybe he'll see fit to do it again in the not too distant future. And the only thing I mentioned was my assessment of what had happened with the Paycheck Protection Program in terms of our community small business people, Leavenworth Main Street, LCDC, Will Katz, just working, and then the bankers doing everything that they could to help our small business people get the loans, fill out the application work, and generally I think for those businesses that wanted the loans, they were able to get them with the 2 tranches of money that came with the first CARES Act and then the second one. So I gave them a little update on that. And then as the city manager talked about, this distribution of the $1.25 million, that money, needs to start flowing to the cities and the counties and the local governments. So we do have a Facebook Live town hall tomorrow, 11 a.m. And the guest experts are going to be Commissioner Wilson talking about the Unity Walk this coming Saturday, and maybe a couple of other things. And then our police chief Pat Kitchens will talk about what's been going on since the Centennial Bridge shooting of a week ago, and maybe some other things with respect to law enforcement and public safety. And then I'll talk a little bit about COVID-19, and that'll be the thrust of the meeting tomorrow, which we're holding every other week now instead of every week. So is there anything else from other commissioners? Any other comments or questions? If not, that concludes our study session, and wish everyone a good rest of their week.